Welcome to My Name is Nobody, a podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of the Cleveland music scene and beyond. In this episode, I speak to composer, producer, and musician Ed Douglas. As a composer and producer for Midnight Syndicate, Ed has done nearly 20 studio albums in his 19 years as a full-time musician. He has also scored soundtracks to several movies and video games, as well as producing his own movie, The Dead Matter. Aside from the various movie and music projects, Ed has been a bass player in various cover bands for over 25 years. Ed has one of the most impressive resumes I have ever seen, and these are his stories. Mr. Ed Douglas, how are you, my friend?
Doing good, Rick. Doing good.
Awesome. You have been a full-time musician for 19 years. Next year, it'll be 20 years for you that you've gone just straight full-time musician / producer. You've done a million things. We're going to try to touch base on just about everything tonight. We're going to get started. The history of Ed Douglas, 1990, 83 to 96.
Oh, man.
We're going back. We're going to go back to the 5th grade when you started playing acoustic guitar for church masses.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you were asking me, when did I start playing? You know, I did little guitar recitals. I think my first guitar recital was in 2nd grade. I played Arthur's Theme by Christopher Cross at the Zamers Music recital. That was the music store in Chardon Square back at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, my first real playing out was a church band. I started playing at St. Mary's Church in Chardon in 5th grade, and that was something that I did on guitar, and then actually moving to bass straight through college until a little bit even after college. I did that. So that was actually my first time, my first bands that I was in playing out.
And you studied under Denny Carlton. And
Denny Carlton is like he's awesome. Yes, he was my music teacher. And he's done so many things, like in the Cleveland scene, starting with the Choir Boys, and I think he played the Municipal Stadium, you know, when he was in that band, and just did a lot of great stuff. And he's still going strong now. He was my mentor. He taught me guitar and bass, but even from our very first lessons, he inspired me and encouraged me to write original music. He never dissuaded me from like going off script from our lessons to like write a goofy song together. That was silly. Come on, I'm like in 5th, 6th grade. Something. This is nothing too big. But it was just that introduced me to like that world and like saying it's okay to go off script and make some of your own stuff. I'm sure that is partially what inspired me to start writing, you know, original music. From an early age and stuff. So I owe a lot to him, certainly. And definitely he was just a great mentor for me.
And he was part of the choir, band The Choir.
See, so that's the choir boy. The choir.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now he played. He was working up. He works at the Fine Arts, and he's just been writing original music for so many years.
Oh yeah.
And he just
I mean, the choir was mid '60s.
Yep.
Well,
And he started then, and he just didn't stop. He just went on and through the 70s and the 80s and 90s, and still to this day, he just keeps cranking out original music and playing around, and good guitarist, clever lyricist, and so yeah, it was really cool working with him. And he got me my first paid gig. He was the music director for a play at the Fine Arts Association, and he got me in as bass player in the pit there, which was kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
And that was the band that became the Raspberries, which is another great band.
God, I mean, yeah, of course, right? Cleveland institution right there, for sure. Great band.
Yeah. So he gave you some lessons on guitar and bass, and that sent you off to your first rock band, Double Helix.
I love it. I love that we're talking about Double Helix. In all my years, I've never had the double. Have always asked me about Double Helix. Yeah, no, just that's my first cover band, right? You know, we all have them. And our first gig was, I believe, the 1989 Battle of the Bands at Chardon High School for the Maple Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just a group of high schoolers getting together and playing classic rock tunes, or what was like classic rock at the time, and we had a battle of bands at Gilmore, where I went to school, and we played there, and we played out a few other times as well. But it was just fun, and it got my chops up playing in front of people, and even doing a little bit of singing as well, but mostly just playing bass on that project there.
You mentioned Gilmore, the Gilmore Academy, which is here in the Cleveland area.
Yeah.
Jen and I refer to it as the Harry Potter School.
Yeah. Oh, the buildings are so awesome, especially where the brothers live. You didn't get to go in there often unless you're going to the offices, or certainly in like prom, we all went in there. But it's just so cool with all this dark wood and really cool architecture and stuff like that. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
I found it interesting. I read here that you formed a jazz band at Gilmore because they didn't have one.
Yeah, it's a small school, and I wanted to do band, but there was no marching band and there was no jazz band. So I said, sometimes you just got to create your own opportunities, and so I did. I got together with the music teacher there, and I said, I'm going to get some people together and we'll form a jazz band. And we did, and it became a club, and then she made it a class. And then it carried on after I left, and people did the jazz band there, which was really kind of cool. And
that's very cool.
Just playing a little bit of different kind of music, and more just repetition. The more times you're playing out in front of people and stuff like that, the better. The more comfortable you are, and the less you think about it, I think.
And then you went on to a hair metal band, Mr. Nice Guy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So right after I graduated from Gilmore, everybody in Double Helix went their own ways, and I was paired up randomly with a local musician named Rob Fargo, and I can't believe it, because we just got paired up randomly, and we ended up rooming together all 4 years at John Carroll, and are still great close friends to this day. But Rob was in a band that he formed with Omar Adrius and Josh Mock, two other Cleveland musicians. It was called Mr. Nice Guy, and it was all original music in that hair metal, that hair metal style. Very Pretty Boy Floyd, because that's kind of what Omar's voice kind of like reminded me of at the time, but very much in that style. Poison, And it was a really cool opportunity for me because it was the first time that I was able to play original material, even though I didn't write any of it, but I was just able to play original material, out in the scene. And that was when Flashes and the Agora and Cleveland Cafe and the Empire, Peabody's Down Under, those were all kicking really hard. And so, especially for like metal bands back then.
Yeah, right.
So, I got to play in all those places and be in that scene for a while. We got to open for the Gods one time, and I'm sure we opened for Fatal Charm and for the Fashion Police, and they were very cool with us, giving us a bunch of opportunities. And out of the blue, a whole bunch. We opened up for them a lot, and it was just a cool stage of my life because I just grew as a musician, but then also had the opportunity to be a part of that blip in Cleveland music, that wonderful time, I think.
From 1990 to 2003, you were at DJ 88.7 WJCU as Mr. Ed.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was. Yeah. Well, yeah. My initials spell my name, so I thought that was really super clever. I'm like,
that is fancy. Then you were went to program director. I'm just going to go through this early stuff real quick here. You won a local TV video production award for Channel 5 from Student Films.
Yeah, it was cool. In college, it was working at the radio station. It was a metal show, classic metal. I really like metal from like the 60s, 70s and 80s. That was the main focus of it. Some time behind the mic doing that. Got to do program directing, so that was fantastic. We had a block of metal, like 8 hours long, where I just stuck a whole bunch of metal shows together, and it was a really awesome time. And so we did that, but then also in college, I was also studying film and theater, so I directed a play there, and I did student films. And these student films were important to me because they kind of set up what I would do later on in life with the filmmaking. But also, I scored all those student films, and that had definitely set up what I would do in Midnight Syndicate because it's all that orchestral, instrumental soundtracks for imaginations type stuff that we do in that. And so the roots would start in college when I was scoring my own films.
In 1993, you were an intern on the Morning Exchange. Was that the one that had Michael Stanley, or was that? Am I confusing that with PM Magazine?
Yes, that's PM Magazine, another fantastic Cleveland institution in broadcasting for sure. But no, Morning Exchange was Fred Griffith. And at that time, it was Fred Griffith and Lee Jordan, but it was the morning show on Channel 5, and it ran from 6 o'clock till like 9 o'clock every day. And they would interview, people, and it was one of the longest-running local talk shows in Cleveland history. And it was really cool. I was able to I didn't go into TV, but I did have the chance to edit some news packages because I transferred over there again. That kind of helped set up what I would do in film later on. And I booked guests. I found things that were interesting in the news and stuff, and then would call them up and do the interview process, and we'd get them on the show. And that was kind of cool. It was a really neat experience, and to be a part of that was really cool for me.
And then another cover band called Route 409.
Yes, in college. Yeah, Mr. Nice Guy ended up leaving. It was really their project, and it was nothing. They're amazing people, and it was really awesome working with them. But I think for me, in the end, I knew that I kind of wanted to spearhead my own project, something that was my own, and I think that was, that's why I just, I kind of split with them. Just because I needed to do something that I had more control over and I can direct, in my own way. So the Route 409 was simply a cover band that I did after I was with Mr. Nice Guy for the rest of my college time. Great fun. one of the first times I ever wrote a song, an original song, and actually played it live in front of people. We did a song called "Fun in the Box," which did you ever hear like of Mama's Boy on Cedar and Lee? Mama's Boy Barbecue. It's really awesome. It's a bit, I guess maybe the John Carroll thing, but Mama's Boy Barbecue had this thing called Fun in a Box, and it was just like wings and French fries in this like box, and they just like doused it with this really cool vinegary like hot sauce contraption. It was just like a total mess, but it was the tastiest thing after a night of drinking or not even. And then you acquired a taste for it, and then it was good anytime. And now to this day, I absolutely love it. They moved to right across the street near the Captain Stadium. But if you're ever looking for some tasty barbecue, Mama's Boy. Mama's Boy barbecue, man.
No, I'm not.
But
That's
I wrote a song about. What's that?
That's a new one for me, man. I've had Whitmore's and Hot Sauce Williams, but never.
It's in the same family. It's in the same style as that. So if you like those two, you will not be disappointed with Mama's Boy. Gotta check it out, Rick. It's really good.
All right.
It's so good, I wrote a song about it. What does that tell you? It doesn't tell you anything. It's nothing, but it's just funny. But, you know, but it was important to me because it was like kind of wild. The first time I was actually to play a song and then sing and perform it in front of people. So for me, it was even though it's a totally goofy song, it was still something, you know, one of those moments you don't forget, I think, as you move along on this journey.
And then things start to get serious for you. Now, I'm going to take a second here. 1995, you wrote, directed, produced, and scored a film called The Dead Matter. Now, this is the first time around for this movie. Tell me about that a little bit.
Okay, so in right out of college, my first project was this movie called The Dead Matter that I co-wrote with this friend named Tony Dempsey, and he and I co-wrote this movie, and I put it together with my filmmaking buddies from John Carroll, Mark Rackesee and Jeff Kasunik, who would later be involved with. I mean, Mark Rackesee and I. That's where Mark Rackesee and I started working together, and he and I still work together to this day. So he's my longest time collaborator. Wonderfully talented guy. But we got together and we made this movie called The Dead Matter, and we had no money. We had we're talking $2,000-$3,000, and back then filming equipment was just so incredibly expensive. It was just not like today.
Still is.
And the quality was like whatever, you know. So we made a feature-length film, but we shot it on Super VHS, which is just one small step above VHS. And anybody that's old enough to know knows what I'm talking about. That's not the super most awesome. That's like one small step above your home video, the Super VHS. And the worst part is when we had to make it was all linear editing. So if I had to make a change, if I had to remove something from the film, I literally had to make a whole entire another copy of the film and just leave that part out. What that means is the image degraded a whole generation loss, I called it. So by the time this was done, we only had two of those, but one major, recut. But by that time, the picture quality was what it was. You certainly could see it, and it was not that terrible. But the audio was rough. We did the best we could. We went to Beechwood Studios to mix it all, which was really cool because Eric Carmen was working in the bay next to us. So that was kind of just my first taste of I don't know, touch with somebody that's
rock star,
somebody famous. I didn't even see him or anything like that. I was just like, oh wow, I'm editing in the same place as Eric Carmen. Awesome. This movie, put it together and just put it out there. It's a movie about this magical amulet, or back then it was a ring that could raise and control the dead. So you have zombies, you have vampires that want to get just a cool twisting story that I thought, was really cool because it had lots of twists and turns, and people couldn't sit down and figure out what's going to happen right away when they watch the movie. So we put that movie out, and we just went out. We shot it around town, around Cleveland and Youngstown, and did the best we could and put it out there. And it was good to get done. And I scored the film, which was really important for Midnight Syndicate, because there was a lot of music that I wrote for that film that I didn't use for the film, but I would later use in Midnight Syndicate. So that was really the big thing from the Dead Matter movie, the first one, that I scored it and it really set up Midnight Syndicate. But yeah, we put it out there, but it was not a financial, obviously. It's on VHS. We sold some copies. We got a distributor. They put it out, but financially, my first project out of college, absolutely not a success financially at all. Not. Just, and you spent all this time working on it, and at the end you're like, great, cool, I got the experience, but nothing happened after that. No.
Well, it's very important because...
Long answer to your question, Rick. You just said, tell me a little bit of...
That's okay, because ramble. That is a big part of your history. And it's very important because that set up, and you kind of touched on this, that set up your idea and basically launched Midnight Syndicate, which is your full-time gig, really. I mean, that's your main gig, right?
Yes, yeah. Midnight Syndicate has been my full-time gig since '97, and like you mentioned at the beginning, it's been my full-time job since 2001. After we released that movie, I decided to get back to music, because that's really where I felt, was one of my strengths, my first love, if you will.
Sure.
Was the music. And I also found that making that movie and finally actually making a full-length feature, because I had done short films in college, my favorite part of that whole process was scoring the film. So that just told me, like, hey, the music is really what's calling you. You should really focus on that. So I said, well, how can I combine my love of film and sound design, because I enjoy doing that too, and music. And I just had the idea for a while for this band called Midnight Syndicate. And the idea was going to be that we were going to create soundtracks to imaginary films. And and we were going to do that by combining music and sound effects, so that when you put on a Midnight Syndicate song, it was a blending of music and sound effects, that when you closed your eyes, you were transported to a world of your own creation, or a movie of your own creation. You're hearing the song, a Midnight Syndicate song, you're closing your eyes, and you're envisioning a movie in your head. Sure. There is no movie to it. That was the concept behind it. And so what I did is I put together the first Midnight Syndicate album. And the crazy thing with that first album is just that I took music and sound effects, and the idea was there, but I didn't have one particular style of music that I used. As in, one song was like a rock song with sound effects. Then the next song would be like a dark instrumental song. And then the next song would be a rap song. Yeah, like I had a hip-hop artist come in, and we did a rap about vampires, because, I'm all stuff. But I asked, can you write a rap about being a vampire? and like from a vampire's, point of view and stuff like, and so he did. So, I mean, it was a little crazy for '96, to be doing a rap about vampires was a little bit out there. It's a little bit different. But that was one of the songs on this album. And there were other songs that were more like, almost like, I don't want to say comedy, but there were like lighter moments, too. It wasn't all dark. Most of it was dark, but not all of it. And what we get at the end is this first Midnight Syndicate album, which is definitely, it's like a collection of soundtracks to imaginary films. It wasn't one cohesive thing. It was just a real crazy mix of a lot of different things that I was interested in musically and stylistically.
But the project hadn't, like every other project, including this one, it has to grow organically. You know, it has to come into its own.
Yeah, I mean, it did. You know, we put the first album out, and you know, and that's what I learned from it. It was too eclectic. That's the word I've been looking for this whole time.
Sure.
Too eclectic. It lacked a definitive theme. It lacked a definitive style. So people would listen to the album. They're like, "Oh, I love track 5, 6, and 7. I hate track 3, 4, and 8." And that makes total sense because they're totally different styles and they're totally different feels. Like, you know, it's creepy or funny or whatever. Little bit of limitation with the equipment too. You're learning, you know, just like with anything. But yes, I picked up a lot from that first album. I just learned, and what I learned after that was that I liked the concept, but the songs that were the best were the dark instrumental songs, and that's what and the horror stuff. That's really what, you know, resonates with me. So after that album was released, and it didn't do anything at all. I pressed 1,000 of them. I did press some cassettes, which I think is pretty cool. But we had, you know, 1,000 units that I made of that, and of course, nothing happened because it was really hard. It was really hard to get people interested in it, and it was hard to market it. It was hard to like tell a radio station even what it was, if they would even give you the time of day. Right. So there was a trend that we're seeing here too. You know, the Dead Matter put all this effort into it, but not a financial success. First Midnight Syndicate album put everything into that. I really felt this was going to be it, but not a financial success. So I figured, well, the only way I'm going to get people to be interested in this Midnight Syndicate disc is to do a live show for it. But it can't just be a band up there playing. I'm going to use my connections in film to do a multimedia show. So we did a live show at Cabaret Dada, which is a small theater on West 6th. And basically, it was a mixture of films playing that we scored live on stage. And then we had actors running in and out around the audience, a real like breaking the fourth wall type thing. And we did these little sketches throughout the show. And I really felt like it was really out there. It was really cool. It was very different. Again, what probably hurt me on this is there were some moments that were very comedic, and there were some points very, very dark, like very, very dark, I guess. So people would leave the show saying, "Oh, I love the dark stuff. The comedy stuff I could take or leave." Or people would be like, "Oh, you had me rolling, but the dark stuff's too much." So again, the show mimicked the album in that it lacked a definitive theme, and that ended up, you know, kind of limiting its effectiveness, I think. So after that live show, I'll admit that was a definite low point for me, because that was not a success, financial success either, and that was 3 in a row and this last one I had to even ask to borrow some rent for my parents after that show, and I had put everything into it, you know, years, and it just wasn't working, and so yeah, that was definitely I look back on that moment. It was like it was a low point, because I was like, am I going to be able to make this work? What am I going to do? And so, but then, you know, I said, well, you know, let's take Midnight Syndicate and focus on what I love, the horror thing, and let's do what I do best, which is this dark orchestral instrumental music with the sound effects blended in. Those are the songs that work best on the first album. Let's make an entire album of that. And that's how Born of the Night came about.
And that was your second
Born of the Night. What was that now?
That was your second album?
Yeah, Born of the Night was the second album. That was our breakout album. We got together with, that's when I first met Gavin. And you know, well, you see how things all build. Gavin was the other half of Midnight Syndicate with me, and he came to see those multimedia shows that I did. And he really liked the darker elements, and he really enjoyed them. And he said, "Hey, if you ever want to work on something, let me know." And there you go. Gavin worked at, Soja's Music. Rick, you had to go to Soja's Music in Richmond.
Oh, I bought an amp there.
Where I got all my stuff. And Gavin was a good keyboard tech there with Tim Blue. And so Gavin would go up to his keyboard. He could make a Casio sound like friggin' chord awesomeness. He's just like flying. He's really, really talented. So I always looked up to him quite a bit. So when he said, hey, if you're interested in, if you're doing an album, as you're suggesting, all dark stuff, and I'm definitely interested. And so that's really great because the first album was more of a solo project for me. I wrote all the music or co-wrote it all. I was really looking for another equal partner in that creative relationship, and that became Gavin. Gavin has written half, we've split the duties in Midnight Syndicate over these years. I write half the music, he writes half the music. And so we got together for Born of the Night, and we got together with a local artist named Joseph Vargo, who is like extremely talented artist, like visual artist, and his artwork not only inspired some of the music, but also was a great accompaniment to the packaging and everything like that. And this magical collection of all these things just really is what did it for us. When we were writing this Born of the Night album, so again, we're talking, it's a soundtrack to imaginary films,
right?
But it's all one theme. And it's got these sound effects. We knew, man, this is going to be really good for Halloween because there's no good Halloween CDs. They're all like Monster Mash compilations or really cheap old 1960s sound effects.
Right.
So we said, boy, play this at your house at Halloween. That would be really, really, it would sound really cool. And we also knew that was going to be popular with the haunted houses too, because they were kind of stuck in a rut. They'd use the Halloween theme or maybe AC/DC, some heavy metal possibly, but they also didn't have some just good, dark, atmospheric music that they could use. So we saw this as an opportunity to take our music and put it out there. So what we did is we took Born of the Night to a costume store, and we just went up as Mr. Fun's on Brooklyn. And the owner was there, and he had a little boombox. We said, can we play this for you? And we put it in, and he heard it, and he was listening to it, and he's like, oh, my God, I've been looking for something like this forever. And then somebody else, a customer, said, hey, are you selling that? And that was like literally the rest of it. He said, I'll take 20. And he bought a display of them. And then we just went then to all the costume stores in Northeastern Ohio. We went to Camelot Music back then. That was the big place to buy. And we just said, hey, would you consider placing this little display of CDs, this Halloween, this Born of the Night album out there on your counter for Halloween? Borders is another one, gaming stores too. And they said yes. And they sold out, so we would go and we'd hand deliver them throughout Northeastern Ohio that first year, and we sold like 1,850 albums. That's what I always say. But that was like almost 1,900 albums we sold out of the back of our car to these stores that first Halloween in 1998. That was the moment it clicked. It's like, wow, we have something here.
Boots on the ground, grassroots.
Very much so.
And then you go to a trade show in Chicago, and that's when you start to get the attention of haunted houses and amusement parks.
Absolutely. There was back in the day, there's a big show for Halloween. If you're a haunted house or if you're anybody that sells anything Halloween related, if you're a costume store or a party store or a Halloween stores you see set up, you go to the Trans World Halloween show in Chicago. It's the big trade show for the industry. And so after seeing the success we had in Cleveland, just in that first Halloween, I said, oh, we've got to go to this show. And we went. So we set up a booth at this trade show and just blasted the album. And it was really amazing. We had haunted houses coming by to go to the seminar, and we just happened to be right near them, and they would just come flocking up, and they're like, what's playing? This is so cool. We haven't heard anything like this before. And And so we sold to the haunted houses. The amusement parks would come up, like Cedar Point and Six Flags parks came up and go, "What's this? Oh, we need to play this in our park." And they would buy a copy and take it with them. And then these stores. Now it was not just stores in Ohio, but it was chains of stores like, I don't know, costume chains, like Halloween Express and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That said, okay, well, we have 50 stores. We'll need a display for each one of them, and it just kind of added up. And you're like, wow, that first year after Transworld, we had our own little distribution network where we were sending CDs to all these stores all over the place. And, I was pretty aggressive at the time too. I knew that I had to strike while the iron was hot. So I flew out to Hot Topic stores, their headquarters, and try and convince them to pick up the album. They did. So getting into Hot Topic was a huge deal. That's an official national chain that was everywhere. That was a big deal for us.
Yeah.
And also what I did is I printed out a list of all the costume stores in America. Like it's always like you bought this, it's like a phone book, but it just listed, you could break it down by what kind of business it was. So I had this huge stack of papers, and every day I would go through a certain state, and I would just cold call every costume store in that state. And I am the worst salesman ever, Rick. I mean, you know me, I can't even talk. But I will, if you are buying something from me, I will literally take it from your hand. I'm that bad of a salesperson. But it was something that needed to be done. So I cold called them, and I just told them, what this CD was. I was like, hey, are you looking for something different for Halloween as far as music? They really, and they did, and a lot of them took it, and a lot of them ended up buying from us. And so after that 1999, we were out about in the national scene with our own little distribution network, that where, my job up until 2001 was at Parker Hannifin, where I was shipping and warehouse. So that really helped. I mean, I was definitely able to, and very, it wasn't a big deal for me to handle shipping and like that. So we did, and kind of just built this little national distribution chain. But that was selling to Halloween stores and stuff. There was a couple of music stores that bought, but mostly it was these specialty retailers. It was but we found our audience that way.
Yeah, you found your niche, and you're up and running. Sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many studio albums have you done with Midnight Syndicate?
There's a best of album there.
Ah.
There's a best of album, and there are two album. I'd say 19, but one of them is a best of. Two of them are remix CDs, kind of.
Yeah.
And three of them are movie scores, movie soundtracks. So I don't know if that counts. I guess it counts.
Sure.
Still. So if you're talking just Midnight Syndicate albums, more like 15, I guess, or so. But yeah, 19 altogether. So far.
Man, that's a career.
Yeah, it has. It was really about. It was about finding our niche and then just going after it. You know what I mean? Most of my year is spent on the business side of it, not the creative side.
And that's okay.
It is okay. But yeah, I mean, after that first year, Spencer Gifts picked us up. It's a huge chain. That's when I was able to finally quit my other job and make it my full-time thing when there was enough. And it came, we just kept growing and growing and growing through those. And then Halloween was growing overseas. So we go do a show overseas, and we get into costume shops in Europe. And then, that's, it just kind of is, gone from there, I guess.
snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. So
Yeah.
you got the Midnight Syndicate as your main gig, and
Yes.
and you're still doing other projects on the side because Ed doesn't sleep. I want to talk about this real quick. I just want to touch on this for a second.
Okay.
Bug-Eyed Monster. You you were in a band with Jeremy Ofterhide.
Yes. You know Jeremy?
I do. I was in a band with Jeremy Ofterhide.
Oh wow, that's awesome! Yes,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Bug-Eyed Monster. I loved that project so much. That was like, Syndicate was so serious with Syndicate. Music was like, in '98. I mean, it was fun seeing Syndicate take off, but it was like it was heavy. Like music was work, and it was very serious, and you had to watch everything, your image, and just everything. And I think I longed for an opportunity to do a little side thing where music is just fun, where I don't have to worry so much about everything. I can just unleash and have some fun. And Bug-Eyed Monster was my first side project after Midnight Syndicate. After Midnight Syndicate started, that was my first side project, and I loved that band. It was Jeremy on guitar, Ryan Conti on vocals, and Tim Blue, who's the drummer, keyboardist for Collage, and great friend, who also helped do the engineering for the first two Midnight Syndicate albums. But the idea behind Bug-Eyed Monster was, so this is 2000?
2001 to 2002 I have here.
Oh, yes, thank you. That's why I have to write this down. I don't remember the 2001. My idea was I love all kinds of music, and I really love, just all kinds of music. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to take Neil Diamond and Barry Manilow and Air Supply and Billy Joel and take all these songs that were lighter and just do punk rock versions of them. Now, this was before I knew about the Gimme Gimmes. Found that out afterwards. But that's okay. The idea is that we would, take these songs and twist them on their heads and make them really punch them in your face. Some TV themes, which, turned out to be something that I really love. We did like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, but we did it all like, I don't know, just rocky, just like in your face. And it was crazy. And it was a lot of fun. And it was really fun. And it was actually going great. Ryan, the singer, had to move away. And so that kind of
I know him as well. But
what's that?
I know him as well.
He's great, and he sounded awesome. He did awesome Neil Diamond when he ripped out like Sweet Caroline, and we were like all like kicking it in like super heavy. It was like wonderful. He did a great Elvis impression too. So yeah, it was great. It was a great collection of people, and Tim Blue is so insanely talented. He was playing drums with us on that, but he's also an insanely talented keyboardist, and he can sing like nobody's business. So it was just a good collection of people, and Jeremy was fantastic on guitar.
Yeah,
I was just listening to some of the stuff we were doing, and I was like, Jeremy really had some nice licks and tastes in there, stuff.
Yeah, we had like a Euro trash alternative band for a while. We'd practice in my garage when I was a kid. I ran into him maybe I want to say it was like 2 years ago. We were at a flea market in Newberry, and he was there.
Yes.
Yeah,
I saw him in. Go ahead. Sorry.
I guess he's living out that way somewhere, Newberry.
He is. I just saw him at Heinen's last week.
Okay.
I was like, we were in the frozen section. He's like, hey, I'm like, check on me, whoa. Yep. So he's out my way in Chardon. So
now we have something in common. We are both in a band with Jeremy Ofterhide.
I love it. I knew that we were. When I listed all these people, the connections start coming. The more you talk to everybody, you realize you're all interconnected in this scene somehow. Now I'm glad we have that. That's awesome.
Well, aside from Todd and Amber as well, but.
Oh yeah. We haven't got to that. That's 2004.
Right. I'm about to, because Midnight Syndicate is continuing to release records. You're selling CDs outside of the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a big moment for me because the Haunted Mansion is a huge influence for me. I love that ride. That like definitely helped me go along the road of horror and ghosts and paranormal. I love it. And so one of the coolest things was to have Midnight Syndicate CDs sold outside the Haunted Mansion. The small things that you have to treasure and just hold on to. I saved I have extra little, the price tags they sent you, like have the little Mickey Mouse logo on and stuff. You have to use their price tags. Luckily, they sent me extras. I saved them to this day. I have them. I save them. Just like, yes, it's just cool. I don't know.
And
it's like it's a that, but yeah, no, that was by 2002. We were really growing very, very, very strong at that point in time for sure. That was like a good 3 years in. More and more chains were picking us up, and we were like, there was only one company that was larger than us when it came to selling Halloween CDs, and they weren't even doing the same thing we were doing. They're doing more of the party music. So we had really, at that point in time, got the business rolling in a good spot for sure. And we're putting out music.
2003 was a big year for you. You might not even know this, but I'm going to tell you it was a big year for you, because this is when you released the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing soundtrack. But more importantly, or just as importantly, you started licensing music for video games. That is awesome.
Thank you.
I mean, that's just an incredible business move.
It's about, I had to look at what we did as something different, and and where we could exploit it, how we can get our music to other people. And I realized very early on, it's like Midnight Sense music works really good in haunted houses. The music that we're doing, we're looking at it as a Midnight Syndicate album, but once it's done, it has a lot of applications that we had to take advantage of, and that was the haunted houses, that was the amusement parks, and it was games. It was two kinds of games. It was like, yes, the video games came from the gaming. There were people play these role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, and our music works as really good background while they're playing their games. So instead of just playing with no music in the background, you put one of our discs on the background. So it's a nice, creepy atmosphere that doesn't interrupt, because it's instrumental. It doesn't interfere with the talking that needs to happen in a role-playing game. And so very early on, we started growing a following that became as big as our following in the Halloween and haunt industry, in the gaming industry, the role-playing game industry. And so that led to Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, reaching out to us and saying, would you like to do the official soundtrack for Dungeons and Dragons? Which I can't, Rick, I'm a huge Dungeons and Dragons fan. I mean, that's the game it has inspired so much of my music over the years and my projects over the years. The Dead Matter theme, the basic concept of a relic that can raise and control the dead, is totally taken from my Dungeons and Dragons games that I played growing up. I mean, it has a profound effect on me. So when they came up and said, hey, would you like to make the first official Dungeons and Dragons soundtrack, Gavin and I were both just floored.
Yeah.
That was amazing, but I'm going along around it. That led to the video games. People saw that, and the video games, there's a lot of fantasy games out there, so they all started jumping. And that's when we started having more requests from video games people saying, hey, can we use this music for our video games and stuff like that. So we kind of it was an end around to get into the video game industry through this Dungeons and Dragons album, but it definitely led to licensing for games, which is a nice adjunct little thing to do with that, and advertising, right? Using, if you can get your music in a commercial or a film or something like that. That's just like a TV show. That's awesome. If you can get that, that's just extra money, sometimes significant amounts of money.
Absolutely. And this is 2003. So we're talking 16 years. And who would know? I mean, think about how much the gaming industry has taken off in the last 16 years. And I mean, it's a huge industry. So to have that like as a outlet, I guess you can say, to sell your music, I mean, that's super impressive to me. I don't know. I think it's incredible. It's a great industry to be a part of.
Thanks. It was cool. One of the great things about the Dungeons and Dragons relationship was that Dungeons and Dragons is global. I mean, it's a really big brand, and it's very big overseas. So we had already done. So what this did, having the Dungeons and Dragons album, brought even more people to our booths. In addition to doing booths at horror conventions and doing booths at that Halloween show I told you about, we started doing booths at these gaming conventions where it's just all people that play games. And that we went overseas with that because once we had the Dungeons and Dragons, amongst our selection of CDs, you had like 4 or 5 CDs, and then you had the D&D. That just brought people in. They're like, whoa, what's that? And then you had the music blasting, and they're like, wow, what am I listening to? Okay, I'll take them. And we really did a really good business at these gaming conventions. Once we had the Dungeons and Dragons there, it just went through the roof. And it allowed us to really go into Europe. There's a huge gaming convention in Europe called Spiel. Almost 100,000 people go to it from all the countries around Germany. And we were able to go there, set up, and play the music, and it's instrumental, so there's no language barrier, and actually build a following, a sizable following in Europe just by doing those shows and having that Dungeons and Dragons album at that gaming show and getting them in through D&D. And then listening to our other albums, and before you know it, we got fans that are buying whatever the next album we put out, which was really special. It's probably one of the coolest things about Midnight Syndicate, was being able to go overseas for work and build a following over there. It was amazing.
Yeah. Man, it's just whenever you think, okay, we're gonna plateau on this resume, we don't. It just keeps going, Ed. Oh my God, you've done so much.
But I was telling you, it's amazing. Nobody in all my years, we've never talked about I never had a conversation with and I apologize if I'm rambling, but I've never had a conversation with anybody about all these things. So it's just fun. It was fun for me, kind of thinking back, so I can give you some of the background. I was like, I hadn't thought about it in years, or I hadn't really gotten into like. I'm so glad we talked about Bug-Eyed Monster. That's outstanding. Not only is that our first connection, it's like, yes.
So now I want to talk about something you did not do. We're going to change it up a bit.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
We're going to talk about a movie, I can't even pronounce it. St. John Smith.
St. John Smith. Yes, my first dabble in Hollywood. Yes, absolutely, yeah. That's 2004. So that was right after D&D. Yeah, I mean, we really were just, we were continuing to get bigger and bigger as far as like our exposure. Really around Halloween. That was our bread and butter. But, if you're big in one area, that can like get somebody to hear you who's not necessarily into that to, and get you some connections, in other words. And so we did get, did start getting offers from like smaller films in Hollywood. And there was one producer that reached out to us, and he had a film called St. John Smith. And, it was a pretty cool script. It had Roddy Piper in it.
Who was
like all wrestler of all time. The bad guy from Kindergarten Cop. I can't remember his name right now.
Richard Tyson.
Thank you. So if you saw him, you'd be like, oh, it's that bad guy. But yes, but he was in it, and a bunch of other people. Eileen Dietz, the lady who plays the evil exorcist, like the demon like face that comes out, she was in it. Just a bunch of different like people from you may have seen in the horror movie here too. So he gets them all together. He's got Jonathan Davis, the lead singer from Korn, is playing the lead character, and he flies us out to LA, and we're on set, and it was amazing. It was my first time on a Hollywood set. All the trailers and like a 40, 50 person crew working around, and for me it was really just super awesome. So we got out there, and I scored a couple scenes for him, and we were gonna. The talk was that I was gonna be working with the bass. Billy Duffy from the Cult was gonna be adding some elements to the score too, and we were gonna work together. And then
that's awesome.
You know how it goes. It's like, but that was the first time it happened. Yeah, but then he ran out of money. Yeah. He ran out of money, and the movie never happened. Such a shame. But it happens a lot, in Hollywood. But it was a tough. We were okay because we're busy on other things. It's nothing at all. But it was, it was going to be really cool. And if to this day, in certain horror circles, if you say St. John Smith, they're like, oh yeah, that's the movie that,
right.
It's got a legendary status as this huge movie that never happened. So, but that one of the cool things with that is that we talked with the producer. He was going to help us. He said, Ed, would you ever want to make a movie? And I was like, oh, I'm thinking suddenly back to the old Dead Matter. And I was thinking, how much would I love to do that old Dead Matter movie that we shot on home video practically?
And that's what I was getting to. I was going to say that that this St. John Smith movie not working out eventually ended up working out for you because it led to a reboot of the Dead Matter.
It did just for that reason. What he did before everything folded, and after we went out to see them working, and it was a great crew. They were using the house they filmed House of a Thousand Corpses or Devil's Rejects, one of those two.
Rob Zombie movies.
Yeah, Rob Zombie had just finished shooting, so they were using that house that they live in. That's what it was, and. Yeah, it just was amazing to be out there. And the producer said, hey, would you ever want to do a film? Maybe we can get together and do something. And I was thinking immediately the Dead Matter. Wow, what if we could do the Dead Matter with a big budget? Actually shoot on film. So me and Tony Dempsey got together and rewrote the Dead Matter. And then of course the St. John Smith folded, and that was the end of it for then. But that did lead to something down the road, I guess. Well, yeah, now we're in like 19. That kind of died. It just we rewrote the script, the Dead Matter, and the idea got planted in my head. Oh, maybe someday I could remake the Dead Matter, this movie that I loved, that I really wanted to do. Maybe I could remake it with an actual budget. That's what St. John Smith did for me. It kind of just planted the seed in my head. And that's kind of, what came from that. After St. John Smith folded, Midnight Syndicate was rolling. We had one of our best albums that came out right after that called The 13th Hour. It's our best-selling album to date, and it was like, set in a haunted house, and it really, did well for us, and we got a, we never get like the awards anybody knows about, but we got, a lot of awards in the gaming industry for being an amazing, for being a good gaming accessory that we won. Like, we were the first CD to ever win an award in the board game industry and in the role-playing game industry. So, in the two separate awards shows they had there. So that was 2005 was wow. We were just cranking at that point in time. Just everything was really rocking and rolling for sure.
And at that time, you get together with my good buddy, Keith Martin.
Yes.
And Todd and Scott Green, both of which guys I went to high school with.
Yep.
And you formed Hogwash.
Again, it was like, it was the pressure from with Midnight Syndicate was it was good. There was nothing, but music was so serious, and it was always so serious. So I really was looking for an outlet to do something for fun. Literally go up on stage. Nobody knows who you are, at all, and just go play. And if you make a mistake, so what? You know what I mean? Just go have fun playing music again,
Right.
like you did back in the early days when, and that's what Hogwash was, with some amazing people. I mean, Scott's my cousin, and Keith. He introduced me to Keith, and then from then it was Todd, and then later Amber. Came into the band, but Hogwash was fun. It was awesome. It just let me unwind, smile, have fun playing in a relaxed setting where nobody knew I was in Midnight Syndicate or cared, and I could be myself, and I didn't have to worry about putting on a fake mask or just, you know what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
When the convention.
I've probably seen Hogwash play live more than any other band, I think. I mean, every time you guys had a gig, if I wasn't working or doing anything, I was there, So good.
There's a big thing that happened down at that time, because that's when I first met you.
Yeah.
At the Handlebar.
I believe
it was the Handlebar 2.
Right.
Which is now called
Diamondback.
Diamondback.
Yeah, the Diamondback.
Yep. I first met Rick Fluger, and that was outstanding.
Right. And when I first met Keith Martin was at my birthday party at Nemus one year.
Which he still talks about to this day. Keith
he was up on the bar, and he just jumped off the bar and got in a fight. I'm like, yeah, I call that Tuesday. It's nothing new.
Oh, that's awesome.
They were
legendary.
Rubber Mullet at the time. Right.
Yeah, that was before. So before I joined, they were Rubber Mullet. I joined in 2004, and they changed the name. When I joined, they changed the name to Hogwash, and that's the name that we would use for. Well, that band, we were in 12 years. 12 years we played. Man.
So yeah.
And again, it was fun, and I think we did a good mix. We tried to play, rock, but we would throw in some weird songs and stuff like that, and they were wonderfully tolerant with my crazy ideas and stuff like that, because I probably would have just, gone light rock, or just, I don't know what I would have done, but I just would have done anything, but they accepted a lot of my ideas, and they were cool with it. And then we just rocked it out. They were a rock band before me, so they just kept doing what they do, that heavy metal and stuff like that, which was a lot of fun, a lot of good times with those guys.
Right. And then in 2006, you score another movie, The Rage. Yeah.
So Robert Kurtzman was one of the co-founders of KMBFX, and KMBFX is a really legendary Hollywood effects company that did a ton of movies, just tons and tons and tons. If you go onto IMDb and you look up Greg Nicotero or Howard Berger or Robert Kurtzman, you'll get an idea of what they've done. It's really impressive. And KMBFX now, Nicotero does Walking Dead. That's his big thing. So Robert Kurtzman directed a movie called From Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that one, Rick?
Mm-hmm. And Wishmaster.
And Wishmaster. He did that, and he did the effects for it, but he directed it. So he was starting a family, and he didn't want to raise his kids in Hollywood. So he left KMBFX to come back to Ohio and come back to his hometown, which is Crestline, which is just a bit west of Mansfield. And he set up an effects shop there. He said, I think I'm going to be able to do Hollywood effects work here in Ohio with less overhead, and I'm going to be able to make movies here in Ohio. And that was his plan. So he came back, he moved here, he started looking around for artists around the area, and the guys at KMBFX had Midnight Syndicate albums. Because, again, our music's really good for background, for artists working, just to have it on the background
right,
while you're writing or you're sculpting or whatever. So he had some of our CDs, and when he found out that we were right up the road, he said, hey, we're trying to put together this movie called The Rage. Would you want to score it? So this one actually did happen. They actually went through, they made the movie. I went down there and I saw what they did. I saw what kind of operation they were doing. And it was great. They had all the trailers going and like the 50-person crew all working together in harmony. And it was amazing to see something like that being done in Ohio. I was really blown away and excited. And so they made this movie called The Rage, featured the Mushroom Head in there, and they're in there too, acting in the beginning. And that was the first score I did. At that point in time, just financially, it made more sense that only me or Gavin did the score. And since I had the background, I had more interest in that. I ended up scoring the film to The Rage. So it was really, Gavin still helped produce it and master it, but The Rage was actually more just my score. And he went on and worked on some other projects during this time, including putting together some custom music for Universal Studios down their Halloween Horror Nights thing. So he was busy, and I did the score to The Rage. And that would lead to The Dead Matter Part 2.
Midnight Syndicate releases the Rage soundtrack album, and then you work with Bob and a producer, Gary Jones, to reboot The Dead Matter.
Yep.
And that gets shot in 2007.
Yeah. And we shot on film. I went out, I got the investors, and it was my dream, right? I had a chance, we tweaked that script so much to get it as good as we could get it. And we casted everybody, and we went down and we shot the movie in Mansfield, in and around Mansfield, over 4 weeks. And it was great. I mean, it's a life experience, shooting on film was really kind of a time capsule thing, because you won't see that so much anymore. So we shot on Super 16, but it's because I wanted the film to look, after shooting a movie on home video, I wanted this movie to look like the movies that I grew up watching. I wanted to have that grainy, cool film look. So that was a big decision to make. Was it financially the best decision? I don't know, but one thing for sure is when you watch The Dead Matter, it's got a great look to it. It looks really old school, and I love it. And that just kind of matched the kind of feel we were for with the film. But yeah, shooting on film it's crazy, man. I mean, it's a whole different animal than shooting on digital. So many things have to be just right, and then you don't know what you have until days later when the dailies come back. So it's crazy. So, but yeah, it was very exciting to do. It was a lot of people coming together to make that happen. I was the director and composer, but it's such a sea of people that are needed to make a film come together. And yeah, Gary Jones and David Greathouse, who works with like Mushroom Head, has been another longtime collaborator of mine. And Mark Rackesee, as I mentioned a long time ago, he was a part of it. And of course, Robert Kurtzman, and the people that he brought in, his Hollywood connections and his experience and stuff was invaluable. And we made The Dead Matter. Once the movie, we finished shooting it, and then we made an album. We had to take a break and make a Midnight Syndicate album, and I came back. And one of the things that happened is that all the movie stores, the video stores closed. Right after we started filming, they all started closing. And, part of the idea behind Dead Matter was that we'll get into Blockbuster and, blah, blah. By the time we were into the distribution mode, there were no more Blockbusters. There were no more Hollywood videos. There wasn't a video store within like 30 miles of Chardon. So if you would have told me that before we started The Dead Matter, I mean, that's kind of crazy. I would have thought that. So what we ended up having to do is distribute The Dead Matter ourselves. The offers that it would have been irresponsible for me to take them, because they just weren't. We had our own distribution with Midnight Syndicate. We were shipping to all these Halloween stores, and we had contacts at these chains. And so I was like, we used that to like self-distribute the Dead Matter, which was good. Both good and bad. It was good because we maximized the amount of money that we could take from it. I got a deal with Hot Topic, and they put our movie out in front on the counter of all their stores. That's pretty cool for an independent film. I was always proud of that.
Right.
We got into Redbox. That was my dream.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I read a funny story about that.
Yeah. Well, I was so excited. I never got to go into a Blockbuster and see my movie on the shelf, which was my ultimate. But the next best thing that we had at the time then was Redbox. And so our movie got into Redbox. And so I went up to my local Giant Eagle Get-Go, and I was there outside the Redbox just taking a picture. And the people from Get-Go came on out. They're asking me what I was doing. I think they thought I was casing the joint because I was like taking pictures of the whole place and everything. I'm like, no, but my movie's on the Redbox. And they're like, yeah, whatever. Kooky, crazy old man wearing a ball cap.
The same year you got into Redbox, you released my favorite Midnight Syndicate record, Carnival Arcane.
I'm so glad you like
it. Yes. I love creepy carnival stuff.
You know what? It is one of my all-time favorite albums that we ever did. It's just a Midnight Syndicate album set in the turn of the century carnival. And that's certainly the most involved sound design that we've done to date. It really, if you close your eyes, you can really imagine yourself in this carnival. And I just think I'm so proud of that album. And it was cool, too, because I was able to get Keith and Todd from Hogwash, a.k.a. And Amber. So we have the Boaterhead crew and the Vinyl Arcade crew getting in, and they did background vocals. They were part of my Crazy Clowns, and Amber was able to do this vocal piece for me in the middle called Kittyland, where I have these kitties, my kids making some weird, creepy sounds and doing some stuff there, and then we have these little la 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 la, and Amber sings it so well, and it's perfect. So it was kind of cool to be able to bring some of the Hogwash people into Midnight Syndicate world on that album too, and it went well for us, so it was kind of cool.
I'm gonna fast forward to 2013. Monsters of Legend. Something interesting here. Universal Licensing asked if you wanted to create an album featuring all the classic Universal monsters. That sounds awesome.
It was pretty cool. Big classic horror fan, and so Universal Licensing reached out to us and they said, "Hey, would you ever want to do kind of like Hasbro did with D&D?" Universal reached out to us and said, "Hey, would you ever want to do a Midnight Syndicate album based around the Universal monsters? We're talking Wolfman and Frankenstein and Dracula and all that." And we were like, yeah, absolutely, we'd love to. So we were able to do that. Monsters of Legend is that. And the coolest thing is we were able to go through the archives of all the Universal production stills from all those movies and pick our favorite images out for the packaging and stuff. And out of respect, we contacted all the families of the actors who were involved, just to, and that was kind of cool, like talking to the Karloff family and the Lugosi family. It was really neat to be able to reach out to them and work with them, in a way. And we did some cross promotion stuff with Bela Lugosi's family. So it was just really neat to be able to do that and touch a piece of horror history, if you will, and that album ended up doing really, really, really well for us, which is good. You want your albums later on to continue to pack a punch, both critically and sales wise, and so we were really happy about that. So, and it was fun. It was fun to really dig into the Hammer horror films and the Universal films that I loved so much as a kid, and bring that as an inspiration for the music, and that's what we did.
And then another score for a movie that was on the Sci-Fi Channel, The Axe Giant.
Yes.
Is that the Wrath of Paul Bunyan?
Paul Bunyan, Rick. It's about Paul Bunyan. He's gone off the deep end, man, chopping up people in the woods.
That is awesome, man. I love it.
It's a classic. It's a classic pizza, beer, and popcorn, late night sci-fi movie. It was wonderful. It was put together by Gary Jones with so much heart. Dang, he did so many practical effects on that, where he literally built cabins that would get crushed by actors and just in costumes and stuff like that with forced perspective and just a whole bunch of stuff. Just so much love went into that. It's a really cool monster movie. You know what you're getting. Look, when I tell you it's the Wrath of Paul Bunyan, you know what you're getting into. Like as soon as you pop it in, right? I mean, you know. But if that's your thing, if you like that, you'll have a great time with the Extra. It's a fun movie. It's just fun, silly, great movie to watch if you like that kind of like monster B movie type slasher. And that's definitely the best. I think it's the best score I ever did for sure. Just if you're listening to it on its own, I think it's my best to date. And I'm really proud of that one. And it's cool. You know, I got to have a movie that I worked on Sci-Fi Channel, and I got to see my name on the television set, so I could check thing on the box on my list of my bucket list, as it were.
Right.
You know, but.
Cool. So Midnight Syndicate is killing it. You guys are, you know, you've been at it a decade or so by this point. Got an armful of releases, and you're getting ready to do some live shows. And Cedar Point reaches out to you. And that's when you start doing your residency, I guess you could say, the Hollow Weekends at Cedar Point.
Yeah, I mean, kind of that's the way it worked out. You know, we ran a Kickstart. We said we knew that we had to do something. At that time, the music industry was changing. You know, that's when, like, CDs were going out, you know, and then people were downloading was taking over. And, you know, it was just, we knew we had to do a live show. We had never done anything like it before for Midnight Syndicate. I take that back. Gavin and I had never played live together before. We put together a Kickstarter because we knew that if Midnight Syndicate was going to play out live, it couldn't just be two guys up there playing keyboards. It had to be a spectacle with actors and film. And then the crazy thing, all these things come in full circle. I did this with Midnight Syndicate. It might not have been a financial success, but I had done a show with Midnight Syndicate where we perform live music
at the Cabaret Dada.
Cabaret Dada in 1998. That film, like, after that show, and it was like I said, the financial hit and everything like that. After that show, I was in the dumps and at lowest point. But now I look back and I go, wow, it's only because I did that show, even though it wasn't a success. It was only because I did that show 16 years ago, before that I was in a position to go to Cedar Point when they said, and actually present to them what I wanted to do and speak from a position of strength. Like, yes, this is what we'll do and this is how we'll handle it. And we're going to put up some screens here and we're going to have actors doing X, Y, and Z and stuff like that. We're all going to get up and running. And they liked what we proposed. And so they said, hey, we'll actually we'll pay you to put together your show. You don't have to run a Kickstarter. Come on out, do the show, and we'll pay you to perform. And so 2014 marked the first time that Gavin and I ever played out live as Midnight Syndicate, and it was a Midnight Syndicate live at Cedar Point Hollow Weekends.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. It was one of the greatest weekends of my life was after opening weekend, because I'll tell you, the Midnight Syndicate live show it's really crazy. It's like it wasn't anything like anybody had ever seen at Cedar Point before. I mean, it was really different. Most theme park shows are those more upbeat kind of like dancey, fun type shows. That's amusement park shows in general, as a general rule. And what we were doing was really dark and creepy and atmospheric and very scary. And we didn't know how that was going to go over with an audience. And there's an audience that didn't necessarily know who Midnight Syndicate was. Yeah, we had fans coming in, but, you know, the theater sat like 1,000 people. And those people, they don't know who Midnight Syndicate is. So they don't know what to expect. And we didn't know what they were going to, how they were going to react. But after that first weekend, that first show, the clapping, and everybody screaming their brains out when they're supposed to be screaming their brains out. It was so great after all these years and all these projects to finally see it all come together that weekend at Cedar Point. Was a great great for me personally. I totally highlight.
Right. That's awesome, man. It's such a cool experience. One hell of a resume, Ed. Good Lord. You've done everything. Another board game, Zombies. A soundtrack for a Zombies board game.
Yeah, yep.
You've done a Christmas record, a Ghostly Gathering, which that I did not even know you had. I'm going to have to look that up.
I have. You have to, Rick. Please do. It's Christmas. That's probably certainly one of my favorite albums that we have ever done. It is one of my favorite Midnight Syndicate projects ever. I love it because, a Midnight Syndicate style Christmas CD. We didn't just take all the Christmas music and make it at a minor key. We found super old Christmas carols and brought them back and put our own twist on it and made some of them like darkly beautiful, I want to say, but it's very much a very Midnight Syndicate-y Christmas album, and that is what I was most pleased with. But it's just it allowed us to spread our wings and do things that we had never done before, play with some lighter moments, but still kind of creepy. And I had a song at the end called Christmas at Midnight, which is a deeply personal song. I can't believe that I wrote it and shared it, but I did. And it's definitely the most deeply personal piece of music I've ever shared with anybody or ever. It's Christmas at Midnight's the last track on that album. And so I was, got a big connection to that album, and I'm really, I love it. I love it.
I want to listen to that.
I gotta send you the CD, but now, no, you don't. You can check us out on Spotify and YouTube, Rick.
Right.
Or I can send you the CD if you want to go old school.
Which people watching this video, if you are interested, I will have a link to the Midnight Syndicate Spotify channel in the description to the video. So Midnight Syndicate is still to this day kicking it, and of course, in true Ed Douglas fashion, you've always got something going on the side. And this I want to talk about real quick at the end here is also something that's near and dear to me because I just love this project that you're in. Love it, love it, love it. Vinyl Arcade.
Oh, thank you, Rick.
What fun. Of course, Jimmy's a great guy. I love Keith like family. So to see the three of you guys up there doing what you're doing, with not only the cover songs, but the TV themes, and it's audio and visual as well. There's movie screens and commercials, and when you guys take a break, it's like a commercial break. You actually play commercials. I think it's just a great project. I mean, was that all you behind that? Was that your idea?
Well, no, but I will say this much. It is my dream cover band. This is the band that I always dreamed of doing because we can play anything, and that means you can rap out some yacht rock music and stuff, which I absolutely adore, and you can then switch it up to something differently. And it was a wonderful group of people first. Tom, Jim, and Keith, I just consider them. I just can't believe that we were able to find each other, which is amazing.
Oh, yeah, Tom. I totally forgot about Tom.
Well, no, Tom's a new addition, and it's so exciting to have him there because he's really just opened up everything for Vinyl Arcade now. We can really tackle just about any song that we want to, as long as we can kind of handle the vocals on it. And
he's a fantastic guitar player.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
All these people are good guys in my band. I really like that. Good people, that good things can happen, I think, when you just get together with good people that are all like-minded, my dream, the TV themes that is something I push. That's what I brought to the table. But Keith Martin and I had always talked about how when Hogwash was done, our twilight gig was that we were going to go and play Ambrosia and like yacht rock and Barry Manilow songs at the Quail Hollow. That was our thing. We were going to go to hotels, and that was our dream gig. But from a realistic standpoint, it was like we really wanted to play some of those songs in a band, play the songs that we wanted to play, like. Regardless, it didn't have to be so heavy. It could just be anything. And we had a lot of quirky ideas for songs that we wanted. We really wanted to capture that 70s and 80s time period with the songs you heard on the radio. And maybe it's songs that not everybody else is doing. Sometimes it is, but sometimes maybe we find some other songs that not other bands are doing. And of course, the TV themes. That was a big part when growing up. We all watched the same 5 channels.
It's a brilliant project, man. It's wonderful.
Thanks.
Great
I appreciate
idea.
it. We love it. And it gives me a chance to take a little bit of the stuff that I do with Midnight Syndicate, like the video elements, and just throw it in there and do it, take what I've learned from doing what I do in Midnight Syndicate and put it to use. It makes sense. Have a visual element. You can do it. I know how to do it. Why not? I think it adds something.
Ed, it has been, one hell of a career you have, and it's been great learning all about it. I really appreciate you coming on with me and talking with me and working with me on this project as well. This is it's been one of my favorites, my favorite interviews so far, for sure.
Well, Rick, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. And I apologize again if I rambled at times, but I just get excited talking about some of these things, and it's nice to be able to do this, and I appreciate everything that you do. Appreciate that that you just give the opportunity for some of the local artists around here to talk about what they do. That's awesome.
Well, Ed, listen, thanks for talking to me, man. I greatly appreciate it. It is.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. And,
really has been.
And I hope to see you soon in the Vinyl Arcade as soon as it's safe to go out. But right now, Jen and I are hermits.
Yep. So are we. Yeah, just, gotta do our part.
Yes, sir. All right, buddy. Take care of yourself.
All right, thanks, buddy.
All right, bye.